Okay, so um, my objectives for today are to identify key components of the flipped classroom instructional methodology, and then I hope that by the end you'll be able to describe the benefits and the advantages of a flipped classroom. So let's start with question. What do you understand when we mean by flipped classroom? Marie Martin used the flipped classroom model the best in terms of this course because she had videos prepared and she had an expectation that you guys had reviewed them, and she used the classroom for maybe more higher level learning. So we'll go over some of the concepts that you guys have already mentioned. So I'm going to briefly talk a little bit about components of what a flipped classroom model are, and then talk about advantages and disadvantages. Okay. So I got this picture from a friend of mine, and I think it's a very good representation of what a flipped classroom is. So, you know, traditionally we are used to giving a lecture in the classroom, and then we would give our students some assignment or some homework to do after the lecture. The big picture concept of a flipped classroom is you give the students the lecture to review before your class session, so that they'll have exposure of the material, that they would know the basic informations by themselves before they come. And then you use your classroom session, instead of giving a lecture, you would use it either for discussions or for using that time to cover maybe difficult concepts to grasp. And you can be selective of your time and how you use your class session. So in a big picture, this is what a flipped classroom model is, that the students would review something before they come, maybe learn the basics, and then when they come in the classroom, you'll be able to cover higher level concepts. So what is it? You can use short video lectures. You can use, book chapters. You can tell them, read this chapter, or other resources beforehand in the classroom. And then your in-class time can be used, to do exercises, projects, case discussions. And it's really it allows you to focus on applied knowledge. So you come with the expectation that the students have the basic knowledge, and then you, in the classroom, you will try to assess how they're able to apply their knowledge. So why is it significant? It has, several advantages. Um, it allows the students to work at his or her own pace. If students are being introduced to a concept for the first time in the classroom, depending on how quickly they can learn, or how well they can listen, or how good they are about taking notes, they might miss important things. But if you provide the lecture for the students in a video, they can view it 3, 4 times, or 5 times. They can pause the lecture and take notes of things that they want to capture. So it allows them not to miss key components, and really allows the students to work at his or her own pace. And then the other advantage it gives you is it allows for better use of class time. For example, if you have an hour to give a lecture on, let's say, muscle relaxants, for example, if you have to use the whole hour to define what a muscle relaxant is, what the pathophysiology of a muscle relaxant is, the benefits and the disadvantages of each muscle relaxant, you're not going to have enough time. But if you expect the students to learn the basics before they come to your class, then you can use that classroom to cover concepts about higher levels of muscle relaxant things. So your classroom could be better used to use higher concepts, to do applications, and maybe to run cases and so forth. Another big advantage of it is it creates a social interaction among students. And some people learn best when they discuss topics, when they hear how other people process the information, how they get to the answer. And there's a lot of learning that happens with that social interaction. Um, so why is it significant? People have done actual scientific studies to see if it is advantageous or not. And studies have shown that there's increased knowledge gain when you utilize flipped classroom instructional methodology. Definitely students prefer it. They feel like they're more engaged. They feel like they learn more, um, as long as they understand how it works. Um, in terms of increased knowledge retention, some studies have shown that people have better knowledge retention using the flipped classroom model, and some studies have been negative. So in terms of knowledge retention, we still need to do more studies to prove that it works. So what are the downsides of utilizing this method? It does create a lot of extra work for educators. Not only do they have to record the lectures, but they also have to prepare something to do in the classroom. And so it's almost like, double work. You have to prepare a lecture or something for the students to consume beforehand, and then you have to prepare something to be used in the classroom. So it does end up being extra work for the educator, especially the first time you give that course. If it's a repeated course, then you will obviously have material that has already been prepared, and it will be a little bit easier. Another big disadvantage is lack of understanding of the model. And I have experienced this a lot. In my mind, I want to run a flipped classroom model. I give material for my students to say, hey, make sure you review this before you come. But when we come to the classroom, it's clearly obvious that the students haven't reviewed the material. Then it really defeats the purpose. You can't really do the advanced properties in the classroom if the students have not done the first part. So that is the disadvantage, is lack of understanding of the model. And then the third part, in which I've experienced in in Ethiopia and in Kenya, is equipment and access to technology. So we created this learning management system that had videos and so forth, that because people didn't have access to internet, they were unable to access the pre-recorded material that we had prepared. So in areas that don't have easy access to technology, you can have some disadvantages. What are the implications for teaching and learning? We have to recognize that the role changes for the instructors, in that there will be less front of the class, and then there will be more collaborative with the students. For the students, they need to know that active participation is a key component of being successful in this classroom setting. And it does add more personal responsibility to the students. If they don't do what they're supposed to do before the classroom, then this model won't work. So really making sure that the students know that there is some responsibility on them for their education becomes important. And then it's a dynamic experience. So that's all I had in terms of the key concepts of flipped classroom model.